order. This is the November Board of Aldermen meeting, town of Black Mountain. This time I'd like to ask you to please turn off your beepers, your telephones. Also, this meeting will be broadcast on Channel 2, 8 p.m. on Friday, 2 p.m. on Saturday, and 8 p.m. on Sunday. It's the first time I've ever got that right. Could we now stand for Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time, Reverend Cecil Jividan will do our invocation.
Let us pray. O God of mercy and justice, we gather this evening where the town's business joins the affairs of heart, and where the town's plans of progress joins ethics and self-sacrifice. Bless this board, the retiring members, its incoming members, the mayor, its town manager, and all employees, that their conscientious and deliberate actions may ever reflect well on the trust in which the whole community has entrusted them. Free them from the closed fists of grasping for power, and free them for the open-handed honesty and sharing of your will over their own. May they not bear alone the concerns and interests of the town, but may they be joined by an informed and supportive constituency. Our prayer is made in the name of the one who always offers hope in the midst of transition, even Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Be seated. Darlene hasn't given me a sign-up sheet. This time we'll have public comment. Remember to please hold your comments to 3 minutes. We do have an alarm system for you. Alan Green.
Honorable Mayor, Board of Aldermen, Alan Green, 335 Lookout Terrace here in Black Mountain. Joan and Ruth, we have not agreed on every issue, that's for sure. But I want to personally say thank you for having served this town. What you have done, it's a sacrifice. A lot of people do not realize just exactly how much effort is put in when you people serve this town. So I do want to say thank you for what you have done for us. I want to thank the people that got out and voted. We've had a record turnout for people voting. And people, this is what it takes. It takes us to let these people know what we need, what we desire. We want to make sure, I want to make sure that everybody gets involved. Come to the meetings. Won't know what's going on a lot of times unless you're here. I also want to take the time to say to everyone that ran in this election, we had a lot of them running. I want to thank you for your willingness to serve this town. And I'll save my thank yous for the ones that have been elected until appropriate time. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Mike Baldwin, 300 Newburn.
I had my question answered.
Phil Bessie.
Phil Bessie, 15 Highview Drive. I want to say it's been a pleasure to be on the Housing Commission, and I'll stay there. And also, I'm just looking forward to a bright new future, seeing the greenways joined together at Town Square and really making something walkable and livable out of this town. And that's the charge to the new group, but I want to thank all those in the past who make it possible for us to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Harry, did you want to speak now? I think you wanted to speak in the...
Different, two things.
Two different, okay.
Good evening, I'm Harry Hamill. I live at 15 John Meyer Avenue. The last meeting of this Board of Aldermen, if my memory is correct, was a special meeting called about to review the plan on the intersection of Montree Road and State Street. I object very strenuously to the fact that the announcement on that said it was only to review the plan. It didn't talk about passing anything. Number two, it was never sent to the planning board. The planning board is our planning organization for this town, and this is a complaint which I regularly make to this board. Number three, the meeting was at such a time that there was almost no chance, particularly in the way in which it was advertised, that any business people would be. As far as I know, the only two downtown business people who were there at that meeting were me and Joe Tyson. Last but not least, it appalls me that this board would take a major action like that without allowing any input from community. Had this been a regular meeting, of course, it would have been possible. So I believe that this board owes it to the people of the town of Black Mountain to now hold a hearing, because you had to also revise your comprehensive plan in accordance with that, because it is a planning document. You're supposed to include it, take it into account in terms of your comprehensive plan, which it doesn't, and talk about that. It's intriguing that tonight you have got at least one of the ordinances where there is a thing about compliance with the planning documents, right? But y'all didn't have such a thing with this change in the plan. Or if it wasn't a change, then to say that it was in compliance. So I urge the new board to take this into account in the way in which it handles things. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last. Next item is consent agenda. We have removed number C on the consent agenda.
That leaves two items remaining on consent agenda. You have adoption of minutes of your October 10th regular meetings and agenda workshop, as well as the October 13th special called workshop on the Town Square and Intersection Master Plan. You also have a budget amendment reflecting the net result of a recent electric franchise tax audit. This audit discovered $75,000 in new revenue, and this simply is a budget amendment that allows you to pay the consultant responsible for that study out of the newly discovered revenues.
Motion to approve items A and B.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Yes, I just, excuse me. Marcy, if you could explain quickly how this was, or, how we ended up hiring these folks. So that, because it sounds like we're having to pay out money, but exactly how that came about, please.
There are certain categories of revenues which we do not have direct access to the underlying information. For example, ratepayers for the electric system, we do not have access to those records and documents. However, we have engaged the services of a consultant who was able to go in and actually check all of the residents in the community who are paying a certain franchise tax and make sure that all of that tax is being remitted back to the town. Under this kind of scenario, we do not have any out-of-pocket costs for the hiring of the consultant. Simply put, is if there are new revenues discovered that we would not have known about otherwise, then the consultant shares in a small portion of that, and that's what this amendment reflects.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next is a presentation on Keep Bears Wild initiative.
And I would like to introduce our Public Services Director, Mark Combs, who will also talk a little bit about the program and introduce our guest who has a presentation.
Yes, Mayor, Board, the Board of Aldermen, this evening's presentation by Tanya Poole, who's a Montreat graduate student, is a culmination of a year-long project to educate the citizens of Black Mountain regarding living with bears. I sincerely appreciate Tanya's hard work and dedication, and we could not have gotten this far and done as good a job without her help. So without further ado, Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. The intention of this PowerPoint is to just go through some of the strategies that I used this summer and give you some preliminary results. So I'll list a few of the educational strategies. I'll talk just briefly about the methodology used and preliminary results, and then a few of the final steps. There were 97 Black Mountain businesses who received the brochure this April to be able to post it in a location in their store. Brochures were also given out at the Town Hall and the Chamber of Commerce, as well as some community boards around town. We designed a website, and it allowed us to publicize the presentations we did at the Black Mountain Library, to offer the brochure to be downloaded by the public. The public service announcement videos that we put together are still there as well, and then an opportunity to contact me by email if someone had questions. There were 4 presentations at the Black Mountain Library. There were 31 participants total. There were also stickers that were placed on some of the public services vehicles, as well as being included with each of the mailed surveys, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. The public service announcements were designed, 4 of them were designed by BCTV. 2 were borrowed from the Get Bear Smart Society in Whistler, British Columbia, and those have been playing on BCTV's website. They've been playing on the Bear Pages website on the Town of Black Mountain, on the Town of Black Mountain's website. They've also been accessible through YouTube. There was also a large article, a lengthy article written in the Black Mountain News. So all of those educational strategies happened between the months of April, and some are currently still out for the public to access. At the end of August, or middle of August, I sent out a survey to 350 residents. They were randomly selected, and those surveys have been returned. 23 were undeliverable, but out of the remaining, there were 157 returned, which is a great response rate. I really have to thank the residents of Black Mountain for sending that back. It took a few minutes to take the survey, so I really appreciate the effort of getting those back to me. These 2 pie charts are just to show you some of the demographics of the respondents, not of the town of Black Mountain, but just of the respondents who returned surveys. And overall, the split between male and female was almost right down the middle. We had about 14% who didn't check whether they were male or female, so we don't know what how those results would play into it. But we know about 59%, so the majority of those who responded, who returned the surveys, were over 56 years old. And then you can see the breakdown from there. 48%, so 75 respondents, were exposed to at least one educational strategy. People, this question specifically read, in 2011, did you see or hear any information from the town of Black Mountain or within Buncombe County on coexisting with bears? That was how the question was worded. They could then check yes or no and then choose from a list of strategies that they might have seen. So it's possible for them to have checked off more than one strategy. And these are the results that we're seeing at this point. Those numbers aren't going to add up to 75 because they could check more than one. But we know that most 56 respondents said that they read the newspaper article, which was great. It means that residents are reading the paper. So that should be a positive. There were 25 who saw the information on television, and that was just a general response. We didn't break out whether it was on BCTV's channel or some other way that they found the information. It was just listed as television. 19 saw the brochure, and I won't read all of them to you, but there was a 5-minute public service announcement and a 1-minute public service announcement. There were actually a couple of public service announcements that were under a minute, so we just lumped those. So 19 people viewed the 5-minute video, and 20 people said they viewed the 1-minute public service announcement. And then one person out of those who responded to this question actually was able to attend a presentation. At this point, some of the results we're finding are a question. There was a question in the survey that said, actually I'll read it to you specifically. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Bears are a problem in Black Mountain. And then they could choose to respond, they somewhat agree, they strongly agreed, they somewhat disagreed, or they strongly disagreed. And 54% of those who returned surveys agreed somewhat or strongly that that bears are a problem in Black Mountain. And 46% disagreed somewhat or strongly. 80% of respondents have seen a bear on their property. We are running some statistics on these two questions specifically because the thinking is that there is possibly a correlation between, and it makes sense, the number of bears people are seeing on their property with how they agreed or disagreed with that statement. Meaning, if they're seeing bears frequently, there seems to be a correlation that they also responded pretty strongly that there is a bear problem in Black Mountain. We're still working on that to make sure that's the case, but it preliminarily seems to be the case. Also, there was a question where respondents could check off which of the following may attract a bear to an area, just to see what knowledge there might be about things on someone's property that could attract a bear. And 81% of respondents knew bird feeders would be an attractant. That's great that that information is out there because bird feeders are usually the first thing a bear gets into when it comes into town, and then they're hooked. So it's great that that knowledge is out there. 91% knew garbage would attract bears, and 72% knew pet food would attract bears. So I think this is great information because at least the knowledge seems to be out there. Again, this is only from 157 surveys, but it does appear that the information is getting around for people to know what they can put up to try to prevent bears from being a problem. And then another question that I think is of use to you guys, the information, they were asked if they were interested in using bear-proof trash cans, would they be willing to use a bear-proof trash can? And if not, why not? And then they had some choices that they could select from. 69% said they would be willing to use a bear-proof trash can. 41% is wrong. If you would make that correction, it should be 26%. I made a mistake there, so right under 69% is correct. Instead of 41%, that should be 26%. So 26% said they would not be willing to use bear-proof trash cans, and then they were asked why they might not. Some concerns that they had, and the overall concerns were that the bear-proof trash cans would be too expensive, that they didn't know how to obtain a bear-proof trash can, or that they felt it was too much trouble. Of that 26%, there were also people who wrote in a response and said it wasn't that they weren't willing to use a bear-proof trash can, but they didn't have a problem with bears. So they didn't feel the need to use a bear-proof trash can. And then the final steps, I will complete statistical analysis this month, and that will be approved, and then final results will be ready by the end of the year. If the board is interested in those final results, I'm happy to share those with you. Thanks.
I'd like to thank Tanya for her work. This has been a tremendous effort over the course of the past year, and she has provided us a lot of product to move on from here. This has been a topic of conversation for well over a year and a half with this board in terms of the bear problem. We have a lot of great publicity and educational pieces as a result of her work that we can continue to use beyond the study. And you all now have some actual data as you move into discussions in the future, particularly as our renewal of our sanitation contract comes up. So we're grateful to you and thankful for Montreat College for sharing you.
And I appreciate all the help. I should have mentioned that earlier. I received so much help from staff from the town, and I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Next item is golf operations update.
Yes, sir. I'd like to introduce our management team from Billy Casper Golf. We have Nick Bednar, Regional Manager, Brian Loveday, our Regional General Manager, and Brent Miller, our Director of Golf at the Black Mountain Course. And I will get their presentation up right now.
Well, Marcy's getting our presentation up. Good evening, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Again, by way of introduction, my name's Nick Bednar. I am a Regional Manager for Billy Casper Golf. We are the management company who, as of September 1st, is overseeing the operations at Black Mountain Golf Course, and appreciate everybody giving us the opportunity to speak with you tonight. We are definitely excited about the opportunity at Black Mountain and excited about the future. Standing beside me is our Regional General Manager, Brian Loveday. Brian is based out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and he's also assisting with the oversight of operations. And then, of course, on the end is Brent Miller, our Director of Golf at the property. What we'd like to do tonight is provide a brief progress update regarding the golf course. And as you'll see on the agenda, we have 6 items we want to cover. Progress update, we want to talk about some of the improvements, startup items after Billy Casper Golf was engaged to operate the golf course. Outreach and events, both hosted and planned. Marketing at the golf course. Financial performance through the first 2 months. Then we want to discuss the 2011-12 operating budget as well as 2012 marketing strategies. So at this point, I'll actually let Brian talk a little bit about some of the fun stuff we've been doing at the golf course.
And fun that is. Thanks a lot for having us. Been a pleasure working with the staff, Marcy, and the town of Black Mountain. It's been great the last 2.5 months. The improvements to the clubhouse are, if you drive by it, they're just absolutely phenomenal. The building, we've got a nice back porch. The pro shop's been redone. The upstairs, new carpet, walls, paint, it's absolutely beautiful. And just proud for having that opportunity to come into a new building. Makes things a lot easier. There's a picture of the pro shop here. This is the downstairs in the old new building. Quaint little place, makes a lot of sense. It's absolutely beautiful. The slat wall makes it really nice for hanging shirts and displaying merchandise. And here's the upstairs, a large banquet facility, which in the future will be rented out for weddings, banquets, that kind of thing. It's a beautiful place. And on the right there is the open air porch that has a nice hardwood floor on it. And some more pictures of the restaurant area as well. The website, new website, www.blackmountaingolf.org. You can actually book tee times 24 hours a day, 7 days a week here. I encourage you to go look at it. It's a work in progress, and we'll keep getting better and better as we go along. This is our engine, so to speak. This is the tee sheet. It's provided by EasyLinks. It gives us all data from people who are playing our golf course. All of our marketing strategies are basically based off of this. We can classify people as members, public golfers, and send pertinent information to those people according to their group. So if we have people that actually like to play on Thursday at 10 o'clock, we know it, and we send them the information through email that would be an offer that they might be interested in, instead of sending the whole entire database a broad general email. So it's great, and it's also the integrated reporting, run utilization reports, which tells us where we're heavy and where we're light according to play, and to drive more golfers to the golf course. Here's some events. One of the events that we've done coming in September, obviously toward the shoulder season of the golf season, we did a night golf tournament, which was a great success. And the one thing that we wanted to let you know about is the flyer that we make here. This is kind of what our design team bases everything on. They do fantastic work, as you can see there with the night golf flyer. And some of the planned events also that we have, club championships, scramble events, in-house events that all the local folks can join in and play with the prizes, and plan on doing quite a bit of those. So this is.
Thanks, Brian. Yep. I want to dig a little bit deeper into the marketing of the golf course and how we're going to use the systems that we put in place in order to drive new golfers to the golf course. Brian mentioned the EasyLinks electronic tee sheet. This is a big part of what we do at Billy Casper Golf, and we feel like we do it better than any other company in the industry as far as mining our data, making sure that we're getting information about our customers and actually using it and putting it into effect in the best manner possible in order to get relevant messages out there and to ensure that we are driving rounds to the golf course. Data capture goals, this is something, as I mentioned before, we put a lot of stock in. By the time we get all of our systems integrated, we will be able to say with certainty 89% of our golfers we can contact either by mail or email. So we hold ourselves to a pretty high standard as far as gathering information from our guests when they come in. It's a lot of work during the first couple months to the year, and it's a little bit different for our golfers that are coming in. But again, we only have to ask that question once, and through time it becomes easier, and the information we glean from that certainly helps us with our marketing efforts. This is a sample marketing report, and just kind of show you a couple of the reports that are spit out from our efforts on the data capture front. This is from a golf course that's actually in northern Kentucky. So this is a place we've been at for about 3 years, and we can tell from this report exactly where our golfers are coming from. This is valuable information from a marketing standpoint, particularly when we're deciding where we're going to advertise and spend our marketing dollars in order to try to get new guests. So in this case, we can see that the bulk of the play comes from Cincinnati, Ohio at this particular golf course. 24.5% of our rounds of golf come from there. And then actually Covington, Kentucky would be the second, and so on and so forth as you go down the line. It's interesting information, and as an operator you kind of get a sense of where your people are coming from just by getting to know them a little bit, but this actually puts it on paper, and the numbers certainly don't lie. This is another interesting way that we separate our golfers out into what we call buckets. Every golf course has a different level of play from each customer. Every golf course will have people who only play your golf course one time a year. Every golf course will have people who play 2 to 5 times a year. Every golf course will have players who play 6 to 15 times, and so on and so forth. And as Brian alluded to, we don't treat all golfers exactly the same when it comes to sending messages to them. In other words, the person who golfs with us one time and doesn't come for 5 or 6 months, we may automatically generate an email to that person inviting them back, whereas we wouldn't do that to the person who's golfed us 3 times in the last week. So it's a little bit more sophisticated program, and again, as we continue to generate this information from our tee sheet engine, it'll allow us to market in a more sophisticated manner and drive rounds of golf to the golf course. We've had a brief history at the golf course from a financial standpoint, and I'll touch on the budget here in a couple of slides. But this is our September financial performance and overview of where we ended up for the month of September. And you can see on the top line in the rounds column, we were budgeted for 2,772 rounds, played an actual number of 2,593. Total revenues were budgeted at approximately $60,000, came in at $49,000. However, on the expense side, you can see that some of the shortages on the revenue side were offset by expense management, labor management, so on and so forth, to impart a net operating income of $220 on the positive versus a budget of $1,525 loss. October, and these are preliminary numbers, I should point out. These will go final in the next couple of days. It was a little bit better from a rounds and revenue standpoint. Budget was 1,764 rounds. We actually played a total of 2,599. As you all know, this has a lot to do with weather at this point, and with the gray skies and rain, that certainly affects things negatively. When we get sun and warm weather this time of year, it pans out the other way. But total revenues came in beneficial at $49,920 compared to budget of $40,567. Again, these are preliminary numbers, particularly on the expense side, but we do anticipate that we will again defeat the budget that we put forth for the month of October. So, good start to the year. Here is our 2011-12 fiscal year budget. Again, we started on September 1st, so these do include numbers, kind of dummy numbers from July and August that we would anticipate had we been operating the club at that time, and similarly going into 2012. But we expect we're going to do approximately 25,200 rounds at Black Mountain Golf Course. Greens fees of $187,000 and cart fees of $270,000. Pro shop sales will add $37,000 to the top line. Food and beverage sales, this is new under Billy Casper Golf Management. We anticipate opening the restaurant portion of the clubhouse as we head into the spring. At the point of transition heading into the slower time of the year, it just didn't make sense from an overhead standpoint to go ahead and staff that during the winter. So that will be a spring item. But we do have limited food and beverage sales out of the pro shop at this point, soft drinks, light snacks and whatnot. So $21,000 is budgeted under that line. Alcohol sales, again, will be a new one. This will be a beer license that the club is currently pursuing, and we anticipate that will add $24,000 to the top line. And then lastly, dues and memberships will bring in approximately $87,000 to the top line for a total revenue of approximately $628,000. From a cost standpoint, this is the raw goods that are going into your pro shop merchandise. So in other words, our cost on the apparel and the golf balls and whatnot that we're selling in the golf shop. Cost of goods for pro shop merchandise, we anticipate that it costs us 70 cents for every dollar that we sell. So that's a pretty standard number that we use within our company, a good metric, which will lead to $26,000 in costs on that line item. Cost of goods sold for food and alcohol is a pretty good number there, 32%. I think we'd be very happy if we could achieve that number. But in other words, with that, for every dollar we spend on the food and alcohol side, we're going to spend 32 cents plus whatever labor is used to facilitate that. Equipment lease, $25,900. This is a fixed lease on equipment to maintain the golf course. Total labor amounts, $236,000, and payroll taxes, roughly about 10% there of that number. Health benefits coming in at $22,000. Golf operations expenses, this is everything that goes to facilitate the pro shop operation, $15,000. Maintenance expenses, this is all your chemicals, fertilizers, materials in order to maintain the golf course, $120,000. General administrative expenses, these are all of the other expenses that don't fall into a particular department. It should be noted that of the $136,000 in there, the management fees for Billy Casper Golf are housed in that number. Food and beverage expenses should be minimal with the startup of the restaurant coming in the spring. We have estimated $2,600 there. Marketing expenses in the first year, $15,000. We probably will spend less than that in future years, but given the advent of the new management company, there will be some startup costs there from a marketing standpoint. All right, lastly are the workers' comp and insurance line items, which total about $19,000 combined. So for total labor and expenses, $617,000 plus your cost of goods sold number of $40,000. We anticipate a loss at the golf course of $29,915, which does again include the management fee for Billy Casper Golf. A couple of other marketing items, kind of the items we're focusing on heading into next year. We are planning a grand reopening for the spring of 2012 once the restaurant is fully functional and staffed. We want to make this a big deal. We want to showcase the new clubhouse that has been built by the town of Black Mountain and invite people from all across the area to see some of the improvements that have been made at Black Mountain, and to really make it a fun event for everybody in the town and for the golfers and the staff as well. So we encourage everybody to come out for that whenever the details are finalized. Beverage license, I mentioned, this is in process right now with Raleigh in order to get a beer license at the golf course, which will be a new item at the property. Membership drive, we do have a number of members who are coming up on the end of their membership in May of 2012, and we want to keep them with us. So we're currently working through scenarios to try to keep those people playing golf at our golf course. Aggressive daily fee acquisition. Again, this is something we are going to use all the tools at our disposal and our marketing department in order to drive rounds to the facility. We want to lead the market. We want to be the biggest. We want to be the best value for golf in the market, in the greater Asheville market, and that's going to be a high point of concern for us going into 2012. And lastly, Buffalo Communications. This is our public relations arm in Billy Casper Golf. They will submit press releases for things such as Billy Casper Golf being selected to manage Black Mountain, and whenever we have big events such as a grand reopening in the spring, Buffalo Communications has contacts with media throughout the country and ensure that that message gets out to the appropriate folks so that we can make our event successful. The Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary Program, all Billy Casper golf courses are involved in the Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary Program. This is an environmental program that shows that we are being responsible to the environment and using chemicals and fertilizers in a way that is sustainable. And we also will enroll Black Mountain in the Billy Casper Green Program, which is meant to, again, be sensitive to the environment and also efficient from a standpoint of energy costs. And lastly, but not least, this is really the cultural element of Billy Casper Golf. ACE training, and this is an acronym for Acing the Customer Experience. ACE training is something that Billy Casper integrated about 6 years ago, and it really has become what we're all about. That little quote there at the bottom is really the mantra that we try to have our staff live by every day, and that's to treat each guest to a fun and enjoyable experience. There is a formal training program that comes along with this that every single Black Mountain employee will go through. It's a multi-level service training program, and the goal is to create a culture shift at the golf course to a service theme. And really it all revolves around that line there at the bottom. And certainly I'm going to work with Brian and Brent to ensure that everybody who plays golf with us is treated in a manner that with respect and to a fun and enjoyable golf experience, both from a golf course conditions standpoint and from a people interpersonal standpoint as well. So that concludes our presentation. Again, thank you for the time tonight, and again, we really look forward to the future of Black Mountain and think we have a lot of potential there.
Do you have questions?
Yeah, I've got some questions.
I do too. Go ahead.
The number of rounds, and maybe Brent could address that. Do you have the figure for last year, what total rounds were 2010 through?
I think we finished around 23,000.
About 23, so we're looking at increasing it about 2,000 rounds. What all was involved in that equipment lease, 24,000?
The exact pieces, I'm not sure exactly, but they're greens mowers, fairway, rough units as well. It's basically the lease that is currently at the golf course has reached the end of its term, and we're giving that equipment back and getting the exact same equipment back in. But it is the big units are the greens mower, fairway mower, and the rough unit.
Okay. Is that about what we were paying last year, Brent?
Pretty close.
Okay.
And actually maybe a little bit less. I think we were paying about $4,500 a month, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a little less than.
It'll be a little bit less. Billy Casper Golf has negotiated prices with their national vendors. And
You list anticipated labor is 236,000. Can you give us what the figure was last year?
Not the exact total. I mean, we were up over 350, but we also had 4 more full-time employees. So now there's only 4 total full-time employees at the golf course.
All right, and then we're looking at on the beverage side there that you're looking at about a 200% markup then is what you're anticipating, and roughly speaking about $16,000 is what I come up from those 3 figures of the food, alcohol, and the other line item for a little over 2,000. So you feel comfortable with the 200% markup?
Well, when we're costing out the alcohol and whatnot, obviously we're going to work with our vendors to see what the best deal we can get on the beer is. It really is what the market bears, and without having sold beer at the golf course before, can we sell a can of beer for $2.50? Can we sell it for $2.95? Clearly the goal for the food and beverage operation is to be profitable. So,
yeah, I mean, it'd be good if you could get that much. I think that's shooting high though on that particular.
This is a metric that we use, and certainly, if we can get 32% cost of sales on alcohol the first year, I think we'd be very happy with that.
In the contract, we had to come up with a minimum funds balance of to have $50,000. As we move through these winter months where we're not going to have, what are you going to be coming to the town for us to supplement that to keep it at 50?
Hopefully not, but at the same time, given the budget that we've put together, probably around March or April, we'll be pushing that line of where it's going to be pretty close. So yes, we do anticipate the first year that we will require some funding in order to bridge the gap to the summer months.
When you look at the $29,000 loss, is that going to be in addition to the $50,000 that we've? I mean, if you hit that.
Well, that goes through. And keep in mind, July and August, we didn't have the cash from those months, which are typically cash positive months for a golf course in this area. But no, the $50,000 is just a cash number. Now the $29,000 is from all operating expenses, and that goes through June 30th.
And then last, on the annual operating budget, in the contract it says it has to be, by April 1st. So you're just going this year from now through the end of 2000 or June 30th of 2012. That's just a figure that you've come up with, because it says in here that you work with the town to come up with a budget, and has that been done already, or is this just figures that you're just going on your own?
Well, this budget was used, we used historical information for a pro forma budget. As we got in over the first couple of weeks and learned of some more specifics about outlay of funds and whatnot, we did tweak it somewhat in order to be as accurate as we possibly could. But this does go through June 30th, and then going into fiscal year next year, we'll create a new one.
So so you will come to us on April the 1st.
We will have...
For the anticipated 2012-2013 budget then?
Yes, we will have a budget in your hands at that time for approval.
Okay, and so then the mechanism for that, how does that work with Knoxville, Chicago, wherever you have these courses? Give me a quick scenario about, you come in and bring us a budget by April 1st, okay, then what happens?
Well, in most cases, the budget is accepted because we've put the necessary time to ensure that it's accurate to the best of our knowledge, and typically the board will approve it. Now, it's different in each municipality and for private owners and whatnot, and oftentimes there are revisions to the budget, but typically the budget is presented and either approved or revised at that time.
Okay, so obviously we've got a way to sit down and negotiate and talk about what's going to be happening.
The budget is ultimately up to the town of Black Mountain for final approval. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Tim?
Thank you. Go back and clarify what you were saying in regards to the $50,000 and the $29,000. Let's get that on the table and get it out there and get it clear.
Okay. $50,000 was cash infusion for startup. Correct. Now, since that money was received at the beginning of September, some of it has been spent. And to talk about the cash flow, and as Mr. Sobel pointed out, the cash flow will be negative for the next several months until we get to about May of 2012. Now, starting in May and June, we're going to have cash positive numbers. That goes into the $29,000 loss, as does the July and August numbers, which are also cash positive. The golf course will, in effect, spend more than it brings in probably for the next 5 months. I think it's safe to say that's the case. So given the budget that we've put together, the loss from September 1st through April is right around that $50,000 number. Now, if we outperform budget, then we won't need to borrow any funds. If we come in at budget or below, then we would need some cash infusion to get us through to the point where cash flow is again positive.
Okay. Marcy, could you make sure that the men's club and the women's club and the board that's existing and the incoming board, that we all have a copy of this in writing before we've got these exact numbers?
Sure will.
The 29,000 loss, I assume you've done some pro formas for the next few years. What do you see for after next year?
Well, and we're hopeful that in 2012-13 we can show a budget that's out of the red. I think what we've seen in most of our experiences coming into a new golf course, that the first year is spent really getting our programs integrated and understanding our customers, some of what I talked about before, getting all that data in, figuring out the programs that are working and what's not working. In the second year, the financial performance is typically better than the first. It's very rare that we see it the opposite way. So at this point, I don't know that I can comment and give a 2012-13 budget at this point, but certainly will be much closer to that break-even number, and I think we all understand that that's the long-term goal here.
You proposed that be changed by increasing the number of rounds, is that?
Yeah, I think that's probably where the biggest area of opportunity is, trying to lead the market, as I mentioned before, and take away market share from some of the other golf courses that are in the area. We have a great product out there. It's a fun golf course. I think we just use our marketing capabilities and outreach in order to drive that incremental business our way. I mean, we're looking for 10% this year, 10% increase.
As we look at some of your expenses like marketing, the $15,185, I believe, is that marketing firm, is that Billy Casper or?
Well, the way the organizational structure works is you have a regional manager. In this case, you have basically two regional managers who are looking after the property. Brian's a little bit closer than me. And then I have a counterpart who's a regional marketing director. Regional marketing director looks after all the marketing aspects of the golf course, whether it be emails, collateral, flyers, newspaper, print advertisements, so on and so forth. But this money will be spent on all the above. And again, I think in the first year we're going to have some startup costs from a marketing standpoint. And also included in there, which I didn't mention with the ACE, we'll have mystery shoppers come in and ensure that the ACE vision that we're putting out there and the culture we're trying to develop is in fact being put forth by the staff. So that's included in that marketing budget as well.
Any other questions?
I'd like to be recognized, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Marcy, and maybe you can help me, and Dean can help me with this. On June 30th, what was the profit or loss at the golf course?
Say it again, please.
What was the profit or loss as of June 30th at the golf course?
I think that, I don't have it with me, but I think it's around $150,000 loss.
That's an accumulated deficit from the past year. And I would note that it's completely typical for even our golf operation before this contract to run a deficit during the winter months, so that's nothing unusual. Also, it's important to note that the $50,000 cash infusion is included in the amount on our balance sheet that is shown as a due to back to the general fund. So this is not a new loss or a new cash. It is already included and accounted for in our balance sheet.
Okay. Brent, we saw some mighty fancy numbers up there, some mighty fancy accounting stuff. Did you guys have that in the past?
No, I mean, this new system that we have in place is meant for a golf course. You know, what we had before was meant to run a convenience store. It didn't allow us to track each golfer. This one, it takes a little bit more time, but we collect information from each and every single player. We would have never been able to do that before.
And so are you able to generate on a daily basis a spreadsheet showing all the business that the golf course did that day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do a thing called the MIR at the end of each day, and it tracks the exact number of greens fees and the exact number of cart fees, the exact pro shop sales, and then also tracks each type of round. You know, and it calculates it out, and at the end of the day, it matches the sheet. So, great.
Have there been any tournaments lost this year that you know of?
I mean, we didn't lose any that we had scheduled. We usually have the Relay for Life, but they went to Muni this year.
Muni, but that was their choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's always their choice. But
how many other employees lost their jobs at the golf course?
All current employees were offered a position with Billy Casper. We had a couple of retirees but otherwise everybody was offered a job and was accepted by Billy Casper, who.
Okay. Of the members, your membership drive ended on the 30th of June 30th, or when was it?
Oh, are you talking about the promotional memberships?
I guess the regular memberships.
Well, we never really ended the membership drive, but we try to get everybody signed up. Usually the 1st of May. It was a little later this year, and we started June 1st. Okay. We had people signing up all the way until August. So.
Given that time frame, how many members who were members last year re-upped their membership? You have a good idea?
I would say 90%.
Okay. Any reason why the other 10%?
We had 117. What was the question?
Any reason why the other 10% may have?
Well, I mean, we had some pass away. We had some that, you know, I contacted each and every one of them, and some of them just had no interest in coming back. So, but we've also got an opportunity to gain a lot of the memberships back. A lot of the members switched to the promotional deal 2 years ago, so now we have 667 people to go after and try to make them become full members. So.
This is kind of a personal question to you, okay? You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. What's your comfort level right now?
With the situation I'm in, the golf course is going good. I enjoy working for these guys, and they've done nothing but help me. So
from 1 to 10, 10 being great?
Give them a 10.
Nothing like job security, is it?
Right.
Should ask him that question in the hallway when Brian and I aren't standing right next to him.
And I will say, Brent is a 10 as well.
Yeah.
So
It's
been a pleasure working with Brent, and very bright young man. Bob Geppert, one of our co-workers, he said that this was one of the smoothest transitions that he's done. So it's been a pleasure working with Brent.
And we were very happy with the existing staff. Brent, what we talked about with treating guests to a fun and enjoyable experience, Brent's just a guy to do that. So we're very confident in his ability to lead the operation.
Thank you, John. Good job.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is public hearing on text amendments to the land use code. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Would you like a presentation on that at all before we?
Yeah, I guess we do.
Is Jennifer, where's Jennifer? And Ames trying?
Voting.
I believe you all were going to make just a brief summary of the changes.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. So tonight before you, what we are looking at is some definition amendments to Chapter 90, which is our abandoned nuisance and junk vehicle ordinance. What we are trying to do is just clarify the definitions that are currently in the existing ordinance to A, reflect the state statutes, and B, make it a little bit more easy to kind of help the planning department enforce the ordinance. Right now, when you were looking at, we'll take a nuisance vehicle, there's about 8 or 9 different criteria. Right now, it lists it out with a period at the end of each of those. So it makes it seem as though it has to meet every single one of those criteria. So what we are asking is that in there it says or, so that it can meet any or all of them, but it doesn't have to meet every single one. The second thing we're asking for is to amend the designation of the authorizing official, enforcement official. Beforehand, it usually went to the police department, so we are now asking that the town manager and his or her authorized designee be the new enforcement official. So generally, that'll fall to the zoning administrator in the planning department. Are there any questions before we open?
If I could add just a little bit of clarification, the planning board has only looked at 2 sections of Chapter 90. That's the definition of abandoned vehicle, junked vehicle, and nuisance vehicle. It also, as Jennifer said, refers to the authorizing official. This is not that I will be personally enforcing this, but the problem is that the police department is really geared toward criminal enforcement of criminal law, and this is really a civil situation, which is ordinarily handled by our zoning administration or one of our planning department officials. So this allows any of those officials to act in that capacity. We have noted that there are some other inconsistencies in terminology within the Chapter 90. Appreciate Harry Hamill bringing that to our attention, which also need to be changed. And so that will need to come back to the planning board at another time. So it may be appropriate for you to go ahead and open your public hearing, hear from the folks who are here, refer it back to the planning board for 1 more month to make sure that all of the language throughout that chapter is consistent, rather than just the 2 paragraphs that they reviewed.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yeah, you're through.
I'm through.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to table this due to the fact that there is litigation going on concerning this ordinance. And so therefore, until that litigation is settled, I feel like it would be appropriate for us to just table this, and after the litigation is settled, at that point, we would make a decision on what needs to be done.
This is a public hearing right now.
We haven't opened the public hearing yet.
We have not opened the public hearing. I'm saying let's table it until we get this litigation settled.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
There's a motion on the floor. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I agree with Tim on that. I don't think it's going to do anything but just create hard feelings there. I think we need to move forward and let the courts decide. Then we'll come back so that we have the right language after the courts make their decision about this. There will still be a junk ordinance on the books. It's just that we just don't need to be dealing with this right now. I think we need to wait till the court settles it.
But this should have nothing to do with the court proceedings, and also the planning board has worked very hard to bring us all the recommendations. Otherwise, we just keep on ignoring their work. This has nothing to do with court. We're not involved in court litigation.
We've got
Wait a minute now, let's hold it. Staff is even recommending that we send it back to the planning board.
As a courtesy, I think there are people who are here to speak, so I think you should continue the public hearing.
We can go ahead with this, and then we'll have a motion for the public hearing. He's asked that it be deferred.
But defer any action until a later date.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion of...
Can you restate it, please?
Reschedule it, raise your right hand.
Could you restate them?
Opposed?
I asked for a restatement. Could you restate your motion, Tim?
My motion is that we just table this until the court case is settled, and then we take it up and deal with it.
I can go along with that, but I think it's important that we open this public
We
hearing
will do
before we
that.
take his motion.
He's made the motion. He had the right to make this motion.
Well, I'm not saying he didn't, but we want to hear from these people.
Right,
in
right. And then we're going to hear from everybody. We've got a motion on the floor that we need to dispose of. So,
Saying that this should be deferred until the court, I thought we had nothing to do with the court.
I believe what the mayor is saying is that we will have the public hearing if someone makes a motion to do so. I think, Tim, if Mr. Rayburn would care to restate his motion so that it clarifies that you will have the public hearing but defer any action on the item, I think that's a motion that you can all agree to.
I've got no problem with that, Marcy, at all. We'll listen to anybody.
We'll move into that next.
I think
Okay.
it's important to let people who have come to speak, let them speak.
Absolutely.
I don't think we should defer things. Let them speak.
Okay. All in favor of Tim's motion, raise your right hand. Opposed? You're not voting?
That's not a very clear motion.
He needs to put in that he.
We're going to open it up at the next. I'm going to ask for a motion when this is over. I'm going to ask for a motion to open it for public comment.
Well, let's put it all into one motion.
We've got it.
3-0, so go ahead.
Okay, it's 3-2.
I'd like to make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Thank you, Carl. Motion to open public hearing. In discussion, all in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay. Raise your right hand up there if you want to come up and make a comment. Harry Hamill was the first one to say he wanted to. Harry?
No, feel free.
Cheryl Milton, 202 Mountain Street. Ruth, to clarify this, I think that you will find that yes, the town does have a legal aspect as far as the court goes. Whether you all are aware of it or not, yes, it is my father that actually has brought suit against the town because of this. I don't have a problem with a junked car or an abandoned vehicle, but when I look at the fact that in your ordinance, they talk about that you have to have license tag and you have to have insurance on it. If you own your house outright, you don't have to have it insured. No one can force you to have health insurance. So therefore, why should I have to pay insurance on a vehicle if I own it and I pay property tax on it? But the property tax, I think, is the big thing that you find that people are not paying property tax on vehicles. So at that point, yes, they are either junked or abandoned. The termination, when you talk about that, when Jennifer said that they wanted the thing as or, to me, if you have only two criteria for a vehicle to become junked, that's a problem in my mind, one or the other, so you're stating that only one has to be. The other thing being that if it goes on to a court level, who in this town, it talks about the safety and the health hazards. Do we in this town have someone on staff who is qualified to make a legal definition of what is a health hazard or a safety hazard when it comes to a vehicle? And you will find in the court system, it is not a layperson's idea. It has to be someone who has a educational background in some way to be able to support what it is that they say. I think there are a lot of things in the town that need work, maybe more than this, but the one thing that you need to look at is collecting the property tax on the stuff, and at that point, if people want to pay the back taxes and want to keep them current, that's fine. But if they don't, I don't think that we need to be able to force people to put insurance and a tag on a vehicle. Any one of us at any point in time could have a vehicle that had an engine that blew. In today's economic time, it might be a great car, but you may not have the money to actually fix that engine for 6 or 8 or 10 months, depending on what it is. So it's a financial burden to the public to have to then carry insurance and put a tag on a vehicle that they can't even drive. But it isn't worth less than the $100, which I think that is one of the things that they struck out in this thing. And as far as the contention went on the previous thing, a semicolon in a statement of that nature means that all of the following things apply. It isn't that you take out certain ones or parts and pieces. It is all. That comes with the same word that the legal system uses as shall. That means it has to be done. There is no giving on it. So I hope that you all will take that into consideration and look a little bit harder before things go too far to a point of where every time that a citizen has to take something to court, it certainly costs the citizen, but it costs all the rest of the citizens of this town too, because it has to be either defended or explained in some way. So that takes time of Mr. Sneed or whomever the town sends as a representative. So it costs all the taxpayers.
Yeah, thank you. My feeling is that we should not be involved in the legal, whatever the legal procedures are, but that you all should also be able to speak.
This is true, but I think that you have to also take a second look about the legal procedures, because these things that are stated in this code lead up to the legal procedures. So if you don't make changes, I doubt that my family will be the only one at some point that will be up here or be in court to say that they will take it on to court. And like I say, it was $1,000 to file the thing. On my dad's part, along with legal fees, he happens to be lucky enough that was something that he could do, but I think that we also find that we have residents here who are capable of owning the vehicle that they have, but they don't have that extra $1,000 to spend to actually file in Superior Court and get an attorney to represent them. Thank you.
Right. State your name. Where are you from?
My name is George Harrison Hamill. I live at 15 John Myra Avenue. And I appreciate the board's decision to allow us to speak, as that's the only reason that I would have come. I first want to thank Marcy for on her holiday. She sent me stuff because it wasn't on the website and I didn't know what was going on. And she was kind enough to respond from her home and let me know the basic situation so that I could understand it. I appreciate that very much, Marcy. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you have an ordinance, all right? And Marcy's already spoken to the fact that it is not a full correction of this chapter if these are the kinds of corrections, changes that you want to make. And so I want to pass by that a little bit, but there are a couple of things that I want to make sure that are considered by the planning board, because the planning board has a very difficult job of trying to do things like this. I know that very well. Under abandoned vehicles, it cites GS 168-303. Each of the members of the board need to have a copy of that, because that is the statute that authorizes this, and it has two definitions in it. One is abandoned vehicles, and the other one is junk vehicles. And the reality is that what you have in front of you is not compliant with state law. And it appalls me that we have a town attorney that doesn't pass on things like this to see if it does comply with state law, because I, who am not an attorney, can read it and say, well, wait a second, it says that so-and-so is going to happen and it's not there. In this particular case, there are two sections cited. Under junked motor vehicle, down at the bottom of your first page of this, it says section GS 168-303-2. They seem very similar. It talks about the removal of junk. The first one is the removal of junked and abandoned motor vehicles, and the second one is about abandonment of junk motor vehicles. So it's a question of what is abandonment, and it talks about aesthetics involved. They're quite different in what they do, but the current ordinance uses this definition from the second part, not the first part. And you really actually have two definitions, because under section 168-303 it says, A junked motor vehicle is an abandoned motor vehicle that also. So it is not, as you thought, Cheryl, 2 additional provisions, because there are 4 provisions. It has to meet one of those 4 beforehand, but our ordinance doesn't say that, okay? So it's in violation of the state's empowering ordinance. Further on, under section C of that, of 303, it says that no such vehicle shall be removed from private property without the written request of the owner, lessee, or occupant of the premises, unless the council or duly authorized city official or employee has declared it to be a health or safety hazard. This was spoken to by Ms. Miller, and what she was doing. Ms. Miller, I got that right. We have no requirement in our ordinance that finding be made. So once again, we're not in violation. That finding, of course, does not affect the aesthetic issue, but it has a similar finding that has to be made on the aesthetic side, which I'm not certain is in there or not because I was tied up enough with doing just this, all right? But it has a long set of provisions that you have to make the decision about balancing what's going on between the private person and the aesthetic benefit to the town, which addresses the issue of gentrification. In the 29 years I've been back, to go with the fact that I was here before, so it's now a total of 49 years that I come here, I have watched this town regrettably gentrify and watched people be forced out because they've lost their jobs, be forced out for lots of reasons, and this is gentrification. We are not Georgetown. If I wanted to live in Georgetown, I'd live in Georgetown. I want to live in a community like the one that I was raised in as a kid, which was a heterogeneous community, not a gentrified community. You also have a consistency to amend a requirement. That's from section 168-383, which came into being when I was on the board of the planning board. And your consistency statement says only that it is consistent and that it makes that these recommendations promote the general welfare of the public. Well, what purpose is in view, which is 160A-383 says, is that your consistency statement, which is a planning statement, says that you also must briefly explain why the board considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest. And I think that's exactly what Ms. Miller was talking about and what she's doing. You have under, I mentioned already the junk vehicle idea, and as Marcy has already said, you have other provisions where you've got to have zoning administrator and other names replaced with your current language that goes in as far as that is concerned. And now that's abandoned and junked. Nuisance vehicles are a different matter. My first question is, somebody please tell me where there's an enabling statute on nuisance vehicles. I don't see anything in the state statutes. Is there one? If there isn't, then you're coming under the idea of the aesthetic idea that I was mentioning earlier, okay? But what you have here is you are listing a series of things which are really things that were oriented towards health and safety primarily, like the breeding ground or harbor for mosquitoes, other insects, but you've added some significant words. You said, these things, but not limited to. Therefore, your person who's in authority can come up with reason 18 that nobody knew about and I didn't know about, and you can call for the seizing of my automobile. If you're going to do it, include it in the list, and if you find out your list is inadequate, come back, please, and add it to the list. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Harry. Harry had loud and clear. Who else?
I'm Lisa Milton, 406 West State Street, right here in Black Mountain. I was reading over the proposed changes, and one of the things that I looked at was the fact that you describe a junked motor vehicle means an authorized, and under the defined statute Harry referred to, it says a vehicle that does not display a current license plate lawfully upon that vehicle, and then it gives the two criteria. When you go to the definition of motor vehicle, it says motor vehicle or vehicle means all machines designed or intended to travel over land by self-propulsion or while attached to a self-propelled vehicle. Well, there's an inherent problem right here when you begin to look, because one of the criteria that was used in the case that is before Superior Court had to do with the fact that the three vehicles were not tagged. We allow mopeds on the highway without having to be tagged. Now, at that point, is a moped considered a junked vehicle because it does not require a tag? Once again, I don't know where it would state that in the law, maybe it does, but I didn't find things that referred to the fact that if you own a vehicle, it has to be tagged. There are collector vehicles, not to say that these vehicles that were in question that's at Superior Court now qualify under this, but there are many vehicles that are purchased and traded, and they're never licensed to go on the road because of their value. So you have a set of vehicles out there that essentially should not be, the licensing of a vehicle should not be one of the criteria that determines that vehicle is junked. There are a lot of vehicles in this town that are probably licensed and driven that really would qualify as a junked vehicle and not meet the statutes, but we don't take them off the road either. So I think when we have people who have vehicles or they have property and they don't have them licensed, but they are paying the tax on it, I think when you pay the tax on your property, that gives you the right to own that property and keep it on your property, but within some confines of the law, but taking out the fact that licensing and insuring that vehicle has to be one of the criteria to determine whether it's junked. I appreciate the fact that you gave us all the right to speak and that you're going to send it back to the planning board. Unfortunately, those poor people will have to chew on it again, but I thank you for listening to us. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? There being no one else, a motion to close the public hearing. In discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Next is a public hearing on the submittal of a grant application to North Carolina Department of Commerce for funding under the Community Development Block Grant Program.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Karen Keena, Senior Planner with the Land of Sky Regional Council. She is acting on our behalf and helping us shepherd some future grant applications through. I would like to point out that this is what she will have some more details, but this is a general public hearing to seek the needs of low and moderate income individuals in our community. This is a prelude to us applying for a specific grant down the road, and I think Karen will have a little more to say about that.
Yes, thank you. Again, my name is Karen Keena, and I'm with Land of Sky Regional Council, and thank you, Mayor and Board. Tonight's public hearing is just, as Manager Marcy has mentioned, is the first of it is a required public hearing for the town of Black Mountain to participate in the North Carolina Department of Commerce Community Investment and Assistance Program funding, either through Community Investment and Assistance or through the Community Commerce Finance Center funding opportunities. This sets you in position over the next 12 months to be able to take advantage of any grant funding opportunities and timelines that come along over the next 12-month period. This is just a very general public hearing. I can give you a list of the funding options that will be coming forward over the next year. They include housing rehabilitation, infrastructure, which includes water and sewer, economic development activities, small business and entrepreneurship activities, capacity building, which is organization capacity building within the community itself, and what is a new program called Catalyst Program, which is the state is still defining what that is going to really look like. So any of those categories that come forward over the next year, the town will now be in a position that their first public hearing will be out of the way and they can move forward. There will be a second, any activity that you pursue will require a second public hearing that will be specific to that initiative and that project, and that will happen at a later date if you do select an area of classification that you want to pursue.
Number of initiatives that the Housing Commission is working on, this would certainly help them with some of the things that they're hoping to see accomplished in the next year. So those people that serve on the Housing Commission certainly would be, I'm sure, in favor of this. Thank you.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Open now for any public comment.
Bill Bassett.
Phil Bassessi, residing at 15 Highview Drive. I'm trying to get by on Social Security now. My engineering business runs at a loss. So I qualify for help. I really appreciate that in the spring the churches send down a busload of kids to fix up my house and get the gardens squared away and so on. I really appreciate everything Swananoa Valley Christian Ministry's done for me. But I'm totally ignorant about what the grant comes from the state.
It's federal monies that flow through the State Department of Commerce.
Okay. Oh, so now this is money that's gotten from taxpayers all over the country somehow. Then it goes to the state, to the federal, and they manage it and take a lot of money out as overhead. Then it comes back to the state and they manage it again and take a lot of money out as overhead. Finally, citizens in preferred parts of the country get it back. That sounds like something I don't want to be a part of. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, the motion to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I'd like to ask Karen to come back to the podium. We were not certain that we would have a grant application ready immediately, but we believe that we'll have an application ready within the next month and would like to go ahead and set a public hearing under the economic development category for your December 12th meeting.
Okay.
Do you want, if there are any comments you have about that particular category? Yeah, if we could just set the public hearing for next time. As I said, it will be under economic development category, which is tied to production of jobs.
I have a motion to set it for a public hearing for economic development on the community block grant.
That'd be our December meeting.
December meeting.
December 12th.
In discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. New business.
The first item is an amendment of the Greenway, Pedestrian, and Recreation Master Plans to incorporate the components of the Town Square and Intersection Master Plan that you adopted on October 13th. John DeWitt is here with the Recreation Commission, and Casey Connor, Recreation Director, who was staffing the Greenways Commission, both of which have unanimously endorsed the action of this board with regard to the Town Square plan. In order for the town to, or the Town Square Steering Committee to proceed with grant applications under certain programs, it's important that you also amend the adopted recreation, pedestrian, and greenway master plans in order to reflect this new addition. So that's all that this amendment is asking you to do. Each of those plans will be changed to include the narrative and the map of a greenway trail that will be an addition to the existing Greenway Trail going through the heart of the town square property. It will serve as sort of a nexus of the east-west and north-south connector in the Greenway system. And if you would like comments from either of the commissions that endorse this, either Casey or John could answer those.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the revisions as presented.
The motion to adopt the revisions as presented in discussion?
Yes.
Okay, well, Tim spoke first, now I'll get you.
Let's identify what you're saying when you say that it would go through the middle of that property.
I won't say it's a precise geographic middle. All it is saying is that there is a component of the town square plan that would include pedestrian access across it, by it, through it, around it, that would serve as the center point of the Greenway system in Black Mountain. And it will utilize existing sidewalks. There may be a portion of trail through that property, but because there has not been a specific site plan developed,
That's my concern.
there has not been a specific site plan developed, but the idea is that we will have a component that allows the
reads
Greenway.
that it's going to go through the middle of it. That's my concern right there.
It will be part of the town square. Right now, the Greenway system does not include that block. It completely avoids that block. And what both the Greenway Commission and the Recreation Commission have said is we would like to extend the town of Black Mountain Greenway system so that it intersects at some point with the town square.
I'm all about that, but I've got to vote against it when you're saying that it's going to go through the middle of that piece of property.
Sorry, that was my poor choice of terminology.
It doesn't necessarily mean that.
Not directly through the middle. It will intersect at some point with that entire block.
I'm all about that working, but like I say, I have to vote against it because of the terminology.
The explanation and the
Wait a minute, she's asked to speak next.
Well, I'm sort of thinking along the same lines as Tim, because it's not clear how we can talk about plans for creating a central pedestrian / greenway cross site within the bounds of the town square. At this point, we have no clear plan. We don't know how much DOT, where DOT is going to come in here. How can you plan the crossroads within those bounds if you don't know what portion of that is going to be DOT? So I wonder if this is premature, if this is a premature proposal.
No, this is a concept just like your master plan is. Just because you have a master plan for the Greenway system now, it doesn't mean that the exact location shown in that plan is what ultimately will be constructed. What it is trying to do is show a route and connectivity to the existing plan that you already have.
Because I know the Recreation Commission, they don't go into things lightly, so I know they've given it lots of thought. I just couldn't figure how we're going to decide on this when we don't know where DOT's coming.
Okay, Ms. Brown would like to speak.
I don't think that has pretty much anything to do with it. Let me read what this says, because this is just a very simple explanation of what they are saying. The heart of the Black Mountain Trail, and I think that's a neat title for this, will bring the Greenway into the heart of Black Mountain. It doesn't say the middle, it says the heart of Black Mountain. Okay. The heart can be in a number of different places. It will run from the south end of the Flat Creek Trail to the town square. It doesn't say it's going to go through the town square, which sits in the center of Black Mountain. The park at this site will offer parking for the Greenway for people wanting to access the system by car. There will also be bike racks for those trail users who want to explore the downtown area as they take a break from their ride. Leaving the town square, this trail will travel down Richardson Boulevard to Sutton Avenue. At this point, the trail will split. One split will travel east to connect to the Riverwalk Trail. Traveling west, the trail will cross Highway 9 and the tracks and will connect to the Great Eagle Trail near Black Mountain Avenue. There is nothing here saying it's going to sit in the middle of the town square. Doesn't have a thing to do with the configuration of the DOT's road plans.
Dr. DeWitt, to clarify this just a bit.
Dr. DeWitt, just come up to the podium.
Because I know you all are very knowledgeable, so I don't want to question what you're doing, but I do want to question when DOT is concerned.
Well, really, it's purely part of the general statement, as Alderman Brown read. It's to make that kind of the center of the place. Where it'll come, we don't know yet, but it's just a general statement that shows that it's part of our master plan, so that when we apply for grants, it shows that the aldermen have approved the master plan, which would include that the greenways will be connecting somewhere in that area.
So it's part of your master plan, not necessarily written in
No,
stone,
it's
but
part
will
of,
be
no,
implemented?
no, it's like
Okay,
all your
right,
master
I can go
plans.
with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1. Appointments to fill vacancies on the town board and commission. First one's the housing commission. You have 2 vacancies for 3-year terms, Robert Pauley and Nancy Hargrove.
I would like to nominate Bob Pauley because he applied in August, so he would be number 1 on this list as far as I'm concerned.
We have a nomination of Bob Pauley. We have a nomination for Nancy Hargrove.
I move Nancy Hargrove.
Motion for Nancy Hargrove. Okay. There are 2 vacancies. All in favor of Bob Pauley, raise your right hand. 5-0. All in favor of Nancy Hargrove, raise your right hand. 5-0. Thank you, Bob and Nancy, for being willing to serve on this. The next is Historic Preservation Commission. 1 applicant, 1 vacancy for a 3-year term, Teresa Howardson.
I move that we appoint Teresa Howardson.
Being no other nominations, all in favor of Teresa, raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0. Communications from staff.
I have just a couple of announcements, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, the calendar, we don't have a new calendar, but I would like to bring to your attention that shortly after elections, every 2 years, the UNC School of Government offers a series of excellent opportunities for development for elected officials at the local level. So I would encourage each of you to take a close look at that as we send them along and participate as your schedules allow. We do have some money budgeted for that purpose for your attendance and participation.
But sometimes in the past, they've held it here in Asheville. I haven't seen a schedule for this year. Have you seen one?
The School of Government no longer does a single school for newly elected officials, if that's what you were referring to. They have a whole series now of development courses that are offered a course at a time, because that seems to work out from a scheduling standpoint better. And they try to offer those in each part of the state, and we often do have courses offered in Western North Carolina, and they try to locate those. As I sent you an email today as an example, they will do an informal poll of folks who are interested and try to locate those where the most folks are interested, so that you don't have to travel very far. It's a much more cost-effective way of doing training these days. Also wanted to mention that I appreciate your support of all of our staff in professional development opportunities. I just returned from an annual public administration conference at the School of Government, and I'm usually referring to what many of our employees are doing, but I did want to announce that I was just elected president-elect of the Public Administration Board for the School of Government, and that's a 3-year term. I will serve as president-elect in the current year and president next year, and then stay on the board as past president the following year. If you haven't noted, I hope you have noticed the beautiful landscaping out back of the town hall. We have the members of the beautification committee to thank for that, as well as the employees of the Public Services Department. They did a fabulous job of designing our new landscaping and installing it, and we're so appreciative of the work that the Beautification Committee does all over town, but particularly most recently here, and they are undertaking a design for reinstalling the shrubbery and plantings at the golf club, which we hope to get done before it gets too cold. Also want to thank Mary Soyanova. For a couple of months, if you've noticed the new sign out front of Town Hall, she did a beautiful job of designing that and of having that sandblasted. This was volunteer labor from all of these folks, and they have certainly done a great job in beautifying our Town Hall. One last announcement. You all were expecting a request from the Swannanoa Valley Museum to come before you this evening. Just a note that there are considerable building code issues involved that have not been resolved with that request, so it will probably be a couple of months before that comes back before you as a request. And then my final announcement, you all received an email, but I simply would like to note the departure of our Public Services Director, Mark Combs, for a wonderful opportunity. He has just recently been hired as the Executive Director of the Asheville ABC Board. Mark has done a superb job along with Jamie Matthews, our Operations Manager. They've been a great team and have done a great deal to improve the performance of our public works functions, and we're going to miss him greatly. Jamie has been named the interim Public Services Director effective this Friday. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Town Attorney?
I have nothing new, y'all.
Just an update on some things going on at the settings. I noticed the boss man is here, but let me read some things that have occurred. On Saturday, the 22nd of October, I attended a meeting that was held up at the settings of Black Mountain by their homeowners association. The purpose of the meeting at that time was to announce the important progress that these folks have made in moving that particular community forward. The overall message was that the settings has literally turned the corner and is now moving in a positive direction. There were about 70 people in attendance to hear some of the following announcements. Earlier in that morning, the association held a meeting and they elected a new 7-member board of directors made up for the first time entirely of property owners, and I think that's a real positive thing. The original developer has signed a document acknowledging the termination of all of his declarant rights regarding the settings. The future of the community is now firmly in the hands of the property owners and of the town of Black Mountain. The developer has also signed deeds transferring the ownership of all setting common areas to the association. Those common areas included that beautiful clubhouse they've got up there, the gatehouse, and the properties that hold the water system equipment, among some others. It also includes 110 acres that are adjacent to the settings that have been placed in a conservation easement with the North Carolina Land Trust, and I think that is an extremely important thing. In order to have these properties transferred, the association had to pay $11,000 in property taxes and $4,000 in legal fees to the county, money that was owed by the developer. And these homeowners up there took it upon themselves to handle this, and they need to be commended for this. The association has awarded a contract to have the water system completed, which will finally allow them to have the system certified and eventually turned over to be operated by the town of Black Mountain. The association has also awarded a contract to do about $60,000 worth of paving in the settings. The work is to repair and complete parts of the roads that have already been partially paved. A major focus of the association going forward will be the pursuit of payment of the infrastructure bond money. This money is needed very badly in order to complete approximately 1 mile of road that has not had utilities or any paving or any infrastructure installed. And this is a critical issue for the final completion of the settings. And the bond money can only be collected by the town of Black Mountain and/or Buncombe County. I felt at the meeting, the folks that were there, the homeowners and the officers of the association were very positive and were pleased with the progress that was taking place. And as everybody knows or should know, the settings is going to be one day a major source of revenue to the town of Black Mountain. So we need to support this entity as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron, do you want to give us an update on that bond foreclosure?
On my end of the stick, I'm not nearly as far along as I'd like, but I have to go through that process. We're gathering the requests. Finally got response on all of the 4 bonds, I guess, that are outstanding from the bonding companies, and we're having to fish up just tons of information to provide to them to go to the next step.
The Blue Ridge Interchange has been added to the Regional Transportation Improvement Plan. Any other comments from the board?
Yes, Ms. Brown made several comments during the past election about how proud she was of the fact that 2 of her former students were running for the board, and she should be commended for the fact that one of her students that was on under her was the leading vote getter, and we're going to be proud to be serving with her. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
Who was that? I didn't teach him. I didn't teach him.
Did you, Marcia, did you have?
I was remiss in not announcing 2 dates, if you wouldn't mind, and Bob McMurray may want to step up to talk about the holiday parade, and we have Holly Jolly coming up.
Yeah, believe it or not, Santa is just around the corner, and a Holly Jolly will be December the 2nd, beginning about dusk with Santa's parade through town down Cherry Street. And Santa will see kids there in the garden by the depot. And then the Christmas parade will be begin at 4 o'clock Saturday, December the 3rd, downtown Black Mountain. I look for everyone to come out and celebrate the season. Everybody shop and buy local.
Any citizen comments?
I'd like to point out before citizens' comments that Holly Jolly is sponsored by Business to Business Merchants Association. We've always done that, and we're always happy to have Bob make the announcements with his Chamber of Commerce announcements, but it is sponsored by.
That's right. Failed to mention
It's a
that. It is sponsored
brainchild
by
of Business to Business.
If I can just have about 10 seconds. I'm Dick Kennedy. I live in the settings of Black Mountain. I wanted to thank Alderman Brown for attending our meeting and for giving you that excellent report. And while I'm at it, thank her for everything else she's done for the town of Black Mountain. And with your indulgence, I'd like to come back to your December meeting and talk more about the issue of the bond that we are intending to pursue. So,
Sure. Please do. Anyone else? Not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.